Jasmine, are you there?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. Hey, I got your plan in. Thank you very much. Can you talk a little bit and get it off this recording deal, please?
Uh, is it switched over yet?
There you go. All right, I can see you now. All right. Uh, I haven't had a chance to go over it. Uh, I saw it this morning when I was checking my emails, and then I had to fix the final exam for the HR class. I had to work on that again. Uh, but hopefully, all that will be up and on Blackboard for you. So, uh, I don't know what I was going to say. I'm sorry. Had a little mishap this morning. Um, my wife, we got up. We get up about a little bit before 5:30, and my wife let the dogs out. And my border collie got after a skunk and got sprayed, and comes running into the house. So our house smells like skunk. So I took him downstairs, and we had that skunk remover stuff from Tractor Supply. And the worst thing you can do when a dog gets sprayed with a skunk is get it wet because that sets that oil in that hair. So the instructions said you got to soak him with that stuff and then let it sit for about 5 minutes or so and then wash it off. So I did. I put it all over him, worked it into his hair and everything, and went ahead and fed the horses and the chickens and gathered the eggs and mucked stalls and came back up and gave him a bath. And I took him back downstairs and he's in the stall today. But I smell like skunk. And
Oh, that's
my
not
wife
good.
is at work. She just texted me and said that her coworker said that she smells like skunk as well. So be grateful you were there and you don't have to smell skunk during this class period. Uh, so anyway, you're fortunate you don't have to put up with my smell. The bad thing is I may have to go politic right after class, and I may, I still smell like skunk. So that's not going to be good for me. But it is what it is, right? It's
Yep.
life. So this is our last class period, and one of the things I wanted to do today is I wanted to talk about the final exam. Uh, and hopefully, uh, so the final exam, most of the questions you've seen before. I'm not going to try to trick you up. They're going to be straightforward. We're going to have, you'll have to choose from bulls again. Uh, and um, there's questions about body condition. Where do you look to assess a cow on body condition? You remember that?
Um, their shoulders, along their back, and their hips.
Okay, and the brisket, the hooks, the pins, the brisket, the tail head, ribs, back. Uh, You need to know the major nutrients for life. Um, the three, you need to know your hormones again, and the drugs we use for synchronization and how they work. Um, your different, the three main cool season grasses we have here in Virginia and the legumes. Be able to name some legumes. Um, what's the, when we use when we use sorghums and Sudan grass, what are some things we have to watch out for? Uh, how low should we graze our cool season grasses? And you're going to have to balance a ration. Since this is on Facebook, not Facebook, this is on Blackboard, I'm not going to be able to see your work. Okay? So you will need scrap paper, blank paper, a pencil, and a calculator to work out the Pearson square. I will give those instructions to Tom, but you will need to bring a calculator and scrap paper. And I gave the answers, multiple choice answers. So as you work it out, uh, you'll need to, choose the correct answer. Now, if your differences, I'm not going to be able to use math and give you credit for that. If you just got the wrong answer but had the proper procedure and everything. So rounding up differences, you're going to pick one of the four answers that's going to be closest to the answer you got. Now, what I did do, and I was a little bit tricky here, okay, because people get this stuff confused. So call me if you have questions on balancing rations. Please, I want you to do well. But, I ask you to balance the ration for energy on how many pounds of TDN do we need, or how many pounds of corn and hay do we need to feed this cow. And I have the correct answer there. And I also instead of what some people do, they get confused and they balance that instead of for energy, they balance it for protein. They put the protein percentage in there. And they got their math right. They just bounced for the wrong thing. But so I take off points. This time it'll be wrong. Okay, completely wrong. And I did do that with protein and put the answer on how many pounds of corn you need and hay you need. Instead of you telling me that for energy, I have the energy answer there, and if you did it for protein, I got the protein answer there. You got to know which one you're doing. You got to know how to do it. Okay? Now we've gone over this. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not trying to be tricky. I want to make sure you know how to do this. And we did homework. I did an example in class. You turned in one of your rations for me for homework. And then you've had to balance rations for your project. So you should know how to do this. So if you know how to do it, won't be any problem. If you get messed up, you may miss it. Uh, so uh, anyway, that's what I've done, and it's that short of an exam. There's questions on hormones. There's questions on the drugs we use for synchronization. There's questions about body condition. How many pounds do you need to gain from go from one body condition score to another one? And how many is that?
Um, isn't it 20 pounds?
No, it's about 100 pounds.
Okay.
The average is 100, 80 to 100 pounds. So, um, so it is comprehensive. You do have to. I do give you a scenario. Uh, and you do have to balance a ration. Do you have any questions?
I don't think so.
The other thing on this balancing ration, it is a different problem than you've seen. I give you a scenario, and I give you two sets of cow requirements, and you're going to have to choose the correct one to balance with. Okay? So, um, that's what you know. That's what I've done, and I also in those answers I gave you the correct answer, and then I worked it out too that if you use the wrong requirements, I got that answer there too. So you would miss it. So like if I gave you a scenario and say that you're feeding a steer that you want him, that he needs to gain or you're developing heifers and they need to weigh a certain amount, a certain poundage by May 1st. So you figure up your days and you take the beginning weight and the target weight, you subtract it, and you figure out how many pounds a day they need to gain, right? So
Right.
I'll have the scenario, the requirements I'll give you would be the heifers needing to gain that amount of weight. And then I give you a set of requirements for heifers needing to gain a different amount of weight, right? And
Right.
I worked out the problem both ways. So both answers are one of those four choices. So you have to make sure you use the right requirements. And I also worked it out balancing it out for protein. If you messed up, instead of balancing it for energy, and you balanced it for protein, you're going to get protein as well. That makes sense?
Yes.
So it's a little tricky, uh, but I just wanted to make sure that you understand how to pull the data from the information given you, and you can balance a ration. I'm not trying to be mean or anything like that. I want to know you know how to do it. Period. And you've had plenty. Y'all, the classes have plenty of practice. The ones that may have trouble with this is going to be Aaron and another lady that did hers on horse production because they balanced it doing algebra with calories instead of the Pearson square and TDN. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And it's not that they don't know how to do it or may not know how to do it. It's just that all the rations they balanced for their project was a different way of balancing it for calories. And so Aaron and, gosh, what was the other lady's name? I don't remember right now. But you have to know how to do the Pearson square, period, no ands, ifs, or buts. So practice, 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 and call me if you have issues, please. Because I want you to do well. I want everybody to get an A. I never intend to fail anybody in class. You fail yourself, or you make the grade that you make. But I want everybody to get an A. I want everybody to be successful. So that's where we're at. Okay. Any other question? Do you have any questions for me at all?
Do you know what day this is scheduled for?
No, I do not. Now, and the reason I don't know is because you have a different exam schedule than I have. Your exams start Tuesday, right?
Yes.
Your last day of class is May the 1st. Our last day of class is May the 4th. So you will almost be done with all your exams before we even start. One thing I don't understand, and I've asked this and nobody has the answer, is, you know, we in the agribusiness program, we deal with 3 community colleges, right? The
Right.
nursing program here at the college deals with uh, 2 or 3 other community colleges. And there are all sorts of community colleges that work together to teach programs, right? And this agribusiness is one of them. What I don't understand is why the community college system as a whole, we all don't start on the same day and we all don't end on the same day. Every
It would
college
make
has a different beginning.
that would make life a whole lot easier.
It would, on these groups, like agribusiness and stuff, it would make our life a lot easier because we'd all begin the same day, we'd all end the same day, we'd all have exams the same day, we'd all have spring break the same week, we'd all have Thanksgiving break the same week. It would just make it a little bit easier on these consortiums. But it's not. So we just have to work around it. So you need to get with Tom. We'll ask him tomorrow when your exam will be. because I need to
Right.
know, because I got to get these things graded as soon as y'all take them. So he can, because as instructors, we have to have our final grades in by a certain date. And so we are under time pressure as well. You know, y'all are, worried about time and studying and your exams. And it's stressful for you, but it's also stressful for us because we're begging and pleading for any late assignments to come in. We're begging and pleading for, for everything to be caught up to date if it's not up to date at this point. So that's why I've been a stickler on this project, because I can't have it carry on. And it's such a major part of your grade. It's worth 100 points. That's more than your exams are worth. And I put it that way because I want you to do a bang up job on it. Because you'll learn more from that project than you will from me lecturing. Now, do you agree with that or not after doing your project? Like I said, I haven't looked at it.
I agree. I learned a lot from it.
Yeah, you had to get in there and you had to balance a bunch of rations. You had to do research. You had to look up cattle prices and feed prices. Uh, and you had to put a plan together, a working plan. And that's the point. That's my main objective for this class. Because in real life, guys, if we don't have a plan, where are we going? We have to have goals. And then we have to have a plan to meet those goals. And you need to have it wrote down. Now, is that plan going to change year to year? Heck yeah, it will. Cattle prices and feed prices do not stay the same. But if you go into the year knowing, hey, this is what the future cattle prices are looking like for next fall, when I plan to sell my calves. These are the current feed prices. Uh, let's plan accordingly with these prices. You've got something to work with, you know, and as you watch feed prices, if they go down, you just may go say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and buy the rest of my feed and store it because I can make money at this price. Or if cattle prices go up, you may say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and lock in a price on my calves. Now, we can do that through the futures. We can do that through options, buying and selling options. And I know we haven't talked anything about that. I don't know if Tom does in his classes or not. I hope he does. But there's also another tool that you can use that Farm Bureau has out, and it's called livestock risk protection insurance. And so, and you can do it on one head, you can do it on 10 head, you can do it on 1,000 head. So it's catered to how many calves you're selling, and you can lock in that price. Because one thing, I mean, we put together a working plan, but we didn't put in a risk management plan. And that's a whole different course in and of itself on how to manage risk. And in farming, you have a lot of risks. You have weather. Is it too dry? Is it too wet? Is it wet, but we didn't get the rains when we needed the rains? Uh, you know, prices, government policy. trade negotiations with other countries, we can't control that. There are a lot of risks that we deal with. So, uh, you know, for those that continue on in ag and have their own farms, you really need to learn risk management. You know, you become a veterinarian, you're going to learn how to manage risks for your practice. So, uh, anyway, that's that. The review went quicker than I thought it would. I was hoping you had more questions, but uh, and you know, I've covered. I'm not going to cover anything new, uh, but I do want you to pick up something from the class. So, a couple things I thought I would talk about. You know, I'm big on forages, right? And grazing management. There was an article in this month's Drover's Journal about, it was called High Production Grazing Plan. Now, uh, I am having trouble with this. I just had it fixed where I could see it. Uh, and and they were talking about, you know, again, how your feed costs are 50 to 70% of your annual cow cost. So, you know, it's talking about things we talked about with the grazing management plan and our forage, you know, our forage plan. But here are some things that it put out or said that I think we need to reiterate. Uh, this this article talked a lot about soil. Now we haven't talked a lot about soil. John teaches a soils class, and I'd recommend you to take it. But the soil on our farms and ranches, that's what it's depending on. You know, there's different types of soils. Some soils are highly productive, some soils aren't very productive. But the thing we can do is we can improve upon those soil, or we can improve the production of those soils through fertilize, through proper management of those soils. And sometimes, you know, depending on where we're at, you know, it may be best to have trees on that soil. You know, you take my farm, I've got some pretty steep slopes. If I were to cut off my trees and plant it in grass, I'm gonna have some erosion problems, right? It's just steep, and it's always going to be a pain in the butt to try to keep into grass. It's always going to want to grow up, and I can't get my four wheeler on there to spray it. And I'm too sorry to lug a backpack up and down them steep mountainsides to spray it. So, you know, really for the health of that soil, prevent erosion, it's best that it be left in trees. Uh, so, but some of my pasture, I've got really good soil, some I don't have good soil. But we can improve it through fertilize. Just like feeding our cows, we got to feed our soil for their soil to produce properly. So just take soil samples and send them off and go with the recommendations for fertilize. Uh, the soil is the foundation of our farms, and it will respond to management. Uh, and through proper grazing or rotational grazing and forage production, we can improve the health of those soils. Uh, so, you know, we want to optimize our forage growth. We want to optimize our forage consumption. Uh, and the principles of a good forage management system. Number one, you have to have a written grazing plan. You have to have a plan so that you can follow it. Again, it will change yearly because we may not have the rain, we may have too much rain, may have a wildfire, something can change it. But we have to have a plan to start off with. And you have that for your farm, right? You should have put in a grazing plan. We need to identify and use stocking, uh, proper stocking rates and stocking density. You know, are we running too many cows for our land? Or are we not running enough cattle for our land? And that changes. That's going to change with as we get better soil health and we get more production, we can increase our herd. You know, if we have a dry year and we don't have the production, we may have to decrease our herd or decrease, you know, our stocking rate. So, um, you know, that changes. Or we may just have to feed and hope for rain. You know, we want to try to do that before we get rid of the cows. The other thing we need to look at too is grazing residual forage. You know, after we go through there and graze a boundary and we move them around, you know, they're still standing, you know, there's still forages out there that our cows didn't eat. Uh, you know, if we move our cows when half the forage is 4 inches, you know, to another boundary, you know, we've got half our forage out there greater than 4 inches. How can we utilize that? Could we strip graze it and force them to eat it? Make it smaller or something? Yeah, we could. If our land permits, maybe we go in there, you know, and clip it down. But then that's wasted forage, but it's good for the soil. So, you know, what are we going to do with our residual forage? Can we use polywire and break it up? Force them to eat that. We need to have defined pasture rests because, you know, just like when we grow hay, you know, we'll make a cut in the hay, then we'll leave that field alone and let that hay grow back till it's tall enough to cut, right? We've got to manage our pastures the same way. We continue to eat on them and eat on them and never let them rest, then we're going to kill out the grass. So we get it down, we move our cattle off, and let that recuperate. And we need, you know, and how long does it need to rest? It depends, right? You know, this time of year, we've got a whole lot of growth, really fast growth. It doesn't require a whole lot of rest. You know, we may be able to come back in there in 3 weeks, 2 weeks, depending how much of it we grazed off the first time. You know, we may just run our flash graze everything and then turn around and come back. And it may just have a week's rest or 2 weeks rest. And we're just getting the tops of it off, moving to another paddock to keep it from trying to seed out on us here in another month. But once this fast growth stops, we definitely have to let our pastures rest and get to a certain, you know, get 8 to 10 inches before we go back in there and graze it again. Otherwise, we're going to kill out our grass. And, you know, you've got the rotational grazing. And then you just got to watch it. Observe your forages. How fast are they growing? When can we move them back into this boundary? You know, when we need to move them out of the paddock they're grazing on. Excuse me. Just got to watch and make adjustments as needed. So that's what that article was about, was a high production grazing plan. And we've been doing you do that, or you got a written plan. Uh, Another article in here I thought was interesting is record keeping. It's called Empower Your Business with Data and Analysis. And record keeping is crucial. If you can measure it, you need to measure it, because we want to be able to measure stuff. If we can measure stuff, then we can control it. And so we get records. We can do analysis on our records, and these tools can help us with critical insights about our operation. Where do we need to make some changes? What's going on? So, always keep records and use that data in your decisions. Let me see. What else was here? Oh, here's something interesting. What country do you think imports the most of American beef?
Um, Probably Mexico or Canada.
That's what you think, but it's actually, oh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't say American beef. World beef exports, the leading countries. What countries export the most beef? Let me rephrase that question.
Maybe India.
India's number 2. Actually, they're tied for number 1. 2 countries are tied for that top position. India is one of them. What other country do you think's up there?
China.
No, it's a good guess, but it's not. China does not. They're not big beef producers. It's Brazil. Brazil and India are the leading exporting countries for beef. Who do you think's third?
Mexico.
What's that?
Mexico.
No. Mexico's not in the top 5.
United States.
It's a good guess, but we're not. That's surprising, isn't it?
Yes.
I figured we'd be number 1, but we're not. Brazil and India are number 1. They're tied for number 1. Australia is third.
I would have never guessed that.
They're big players in beef and lamb. They, it's they're big cattle and sheep producers. We're number 4, and New Zealand is number 5. There's only about 3 foreign countries I want to go see. I'm not much of a traveler. I don't like traveling. My wife loves to travel. I don't. But there are 3 countries, 3 foreign countries that I would like to see. I'd like to see Canada, at least the western part of Canada where the ranches are. That's what interests me. I want to go see cows in Canada. I want to go to Australia. I want to go to the outback, some of those big cattle stations and sheep stations. I don't care about going to the coast, going to Sydney. I want to go back there. I want to go see where the ranching stuff and the farming. And the other country I would like to see is New Zealand. And I want to go see cattle and sheep in New Zealand. I'm weird, ain't I?
Well, I want to go to Australia to like just look at the animals and stuff, but unless they find a way to drive to Australia, I doubt that I'm gonna go because I don't want to get on a plane or a boat. If I can't drive
You
there, I
know,
don't want to go.
Jasmine, I'm like you. I have no desire to get on a boat. I feel I'm held hostage. If something were to happen, I can't do nothing about it. I'm stuck in the middle of the freaking ocean. I have
Yep,
no
no
desire to
desire
go
to
on a
go on a
cruise.
cruise.
No, no desire to go on a cruise. And as for flying, well, it used to not bother me too much. I mean, and I looked at it from the standpoint, I'm going to die one day. You know, we're all going to die. And if it's in a plane crash, more than likely it's going to be pretty sudden, and I won't linger, hopefully, and it'd be pretty quick and hopefully pretty painless. So flying never really bothered me that much. But the last few years, it has. And the reason I don't like flying is because I feel violated.
I was about to say, I don't think the flying would be so bad. It's like what you have to do before you get on the airplane. You got to go through so
Ex-
much hassle
ex-
and stuff.
exactly. You go through the little metal detector. That's not a big deal to me. I don't mind. And I don't mind if they pat me down. What I don't like is going in that machine and somebody sit there and look at my naked body. I feel violated.
I don't know why somebody would want to have that job anyway. Like, that, I don't think I could do that job.
I don't think I could either. I have no desire to do that. So I'm like you. My wife don't care. You know, she loves to travel. She don't. Oh, I found a great deal on airline tickets. Well, great. You know, when I have to fly, my anxiety level pops out the roof. Because one, I don't like to be late, and I want to make sure I catch my flights because I hate having to miss a flight or missing your flight, a connection or whatever. You know, and I've flown not a whole lot, but I've flown enough to where I've had to go to. You know, we have a little airport here. If we fly out of, you always have to go to Atlanta, or most times you go to Atlanta and then catch another flight, right? So, you know, I get anxious about making that connection. And then I get anxious about whether or not my luggage is going to be there.
Yeah, that would be my luck. My luggage wouldn't come.
And if you have to fly because of business, where you know if you think you're going to get there in time and change clothes and be everything, and you're just going to wear something comfortable, don't do it. Wear your business attire because number one, you may get held up and you may have to go directly to your meeting. Number two, they may send somebody to the airport to pick you up so you don't have to rent a car or take a cab. In that case, you want your first impression to be you're in flip flops and shorts or, just comfortable clothes, not looking professional. Number three, your luggage may not make it with you and you're stuck with the clothes on your back till you go shopping. So dress professional if it's a business trip. So the other thing is try not to get skunk smell on you before you go. For whatever that's worth.
Yeah, I try to avoid that.
It's something good to avoid. Uh, there was another article in here that I think it's worth mentioning. Um, and that's taking care of you. When in the agricultural industry, farmers and ranchers, they're not exempt from you know, from mental disorders um, or mental illness, with chemical imbalances or whatever. No different than the rest of the population. The one thing that is different with farmers and ranchers, number one, they chose that profession, okay, and most people choose their own profession, but uh, ranching, farming, they're independent. You're your own boss. You work long hours by yourself, or just not a lot of people. A lot of solitary time, and a lot of a lot of farmers and ranchers, um, they're multi generational. That farm or ranch was passed on from their parents, passed on from their grandparents, and their great grandparents, and they don't want to be the ones that lost the farm or lost the ranch. And so when times are tough, low cattle prices, high feed prices, low low prices for whatever you're selling, that's you know just like everybody else, economic times, when times are tough economically, it affects people a lot more stress. Farmers and ranchers are not exempt from that. In fact, it could be a little bit worse for them if it's a multi generational operation because they don't want to be the one that lost the family farm. So, uh, research has shown that when that suicide rates increase in bad situations. You remember a few years ago, and you may be too young to remember, when England had that outbreak of foot and mouth disease.
I think so.
All right. Well, that's in the soil, and ever so many years, that disease rears its ugly head in England, and they have to they have to euthanize those animals as biosecurity so it doesn't spread. And so if it shows up, if you're farming in England and it shows up in England on your farm, it's just not that animal that's affected. They're going to euthanize your whole herd. You're going to be wiped out. Suicide rates increased by a factor of 10. So watch out for yourself. Take care of you. I know personally, um, from personal experience, it is very stressful. Um, you know, Anxiety always builds and continues to build. And you're watching those cattle prices and you hope that they maintain or that they go up before you have to sell your calves. I know what it's like having to sell calves in a bad year. And I know what it's like having to figure out, taking that money and trying to figure out who I'm going to pay on the bills and who will work with me. I know what it's like to be on the cusp of bankruptcy. Um, I know what it's like farming and having a training stable and it's dead of winter, 0 degrees outside, and you don't have a single horse in the barn to help you pay your bill. I learned, grateful for my dad for teaching me to make a budget and to put money away. So during the spring and summer and late fall, I saved every dime I got so I could get through the winter if I didn't have any horses. But I know that stress. I know that emotional stress. I'm not saying I try to commit suicide or anything. Don't take that. Don't take it the wrong way. But I know that stress. I've experienced it. And my farm's not multi generational. My dad bought it as a land investment, and I got it from my dad. But it means a lot to me. But I tell you, it's not enough to make a living from, but it's enough to keep me busy and supplement my income. But I had some other land leased, uh, and was running a bunch of cattle. But I know that stress. So don't take care of you. Okay, keep learn how you got to learn how to deal with it. Get help if you're having trouble dealing with it. Uh, but don't let it overtake you and commit suicide. It's not worth it. So take care of you and look for signs in other farmers. If they're looking depressed or whatever, just listen to them. About all you can do. But be aware. Farmers and ranchers aren't exempt from mental stress, mental health issues, and you don't want. I don't want anybody committing suicide, and I don't want you know I just want you to be aware of that. You got to take care. Any That's about all I had today, to be honest with you. Let me see what else in the headlines be good to look at. Um, do what's in Beef magazine. They're still recovering from the wildfires from out west. Um, it's let me pull this up. They're starting to green up from there, but it may be a while before they can graze them. It all depends on the amount of soil. Uh, where they may be, have to cut back their carrying capacity. Um, Kansas is recommending they cut back to about 25% of normal, um, and then increase that to about 75% of normal the second year. So it'll be about 3 years so they can raise their normal carrying capacity. Uh, but it's interesting. Uh, there's been a petition filed um, to make farmers protect livestock from adverse weather. Um, and most weather, you know, we talked about cold stress, you know, um, economically, it's not feasible to have a barn for all your cattle to go in. It's just not possible. Uh, but we do want windbreaks, and they can be natural windbreaks, trees, hills, bluffs, uh, and with these humane groups, animal welfare groups, they make decisions based on their heart, not on science. And science has proven that if our cattle, our livestock's in moderate body condition, if they have some fat on them and we're feeding them properly and they have protection from the wind, they'll be okay. Like I said earlier, the worst thing is that cold rain that's on them. Uh, but, you know, uh, that can be hard on them, and it's just hard to protect animals for that. I mean, I got a running shed for my horses, and do they ever use that? Very, very seldom. They'll use it more in the summertime to get in there in the shade, although they do have trees they can go in. But this winter, they're never in there. Even in a cold rain, they're still outside. But my horses were in good body condition. I fed them well, but they never used their running shed. Uh, so, um, got a welfare animal rights group trying to push that issue. Um, they think livestock's being neglected and dying painfully, and that's not the case. You know, ranchers, guys, take care of their cattle. I mean, there's always a few bad eggs, okay? I'm not going to discount that. But we depend on them for a living. We've got to keep them healthy. We got to keep them happy if we're going to make money from them. And, you know, they're They just don't. I don't understand these groups. I really don't. Uh, but that's just the way it is. We've got to deal with them, and it's a shame. Uh, and I don't know what answers lie. I think we've got to use. I wish we could get people to rely on science more instead of emotions. Um, I don't want to ramble and waste your time. Um, Another thing you need to be aware of, when I was in college, they taught this quite a bit. And you haven't, you hear it sometimes, but here the last little bit, it's being kind of crazy. You know, everything kind of goes in cycles, right? You're up, you're down, you're up, you're down. Cattle prices historically has done that as well. And their cycle is about 7 to 11 years. And then, you know, first part of those years, those first few years, prices are low. Then they increase up to about 7 to 11 years, and then they drop drastically. You need to be aware of that, uh, and plan accordingly. Now, here lately, it's blown. I don't know if it's really blown out of the water or not, but um, you know, everything. There's all sorts of things that can change that cycle. Weather, government policy, a disease outbreak, even the cost of corn uh, can change that. But and it can, and when I say it can change it, it can either prolong the high prices or it can make shorten up that cycle a little bit. But keep track with that, or be aware of that, because prices are cyclical, and it's just not in the beef. It used to be in the pork, uh, and it still may be there. I don't think it's as much there since they've changed, gone to integrated system of pork production. But anyway, uh, that's about all I have. So, what would you like for me to talk about so I don't waste your time, or you need me to? What stories you want me to tell you today, or you want me to let you go, or what?
I don't know. It doesn't matter.
I just thought I was rambling, but we did do a review for the exam. I brought in an article that reiterated stuff I've been telling you throughout the semester with forage management. Uh, anyway, go ahead. What were you saying?
Oh, I don't know. It doesn't really matter what you talk about. It doesn't matter to me.
All right. Well, we've only got about 15 minutes left. So, uh, do you have any questions for me?
No.
No. Okay. Um, come up with questions for tomorrow because I don't think people's going to ask me too many questions about the exam tomorrow. And I've covered everything in HR that I've wanted to cover. And in here, I mean, we haven't missed very many classes at all. What, 2 classes maybe?
I think so.
Yeah. Sometimes we miss a week or more. Most times we miss a week or more. And so I'm rushing to get this done. All right, let me ask you a question. What can I do better next time I teach this class? What would you change?
I thought it went pretty smooth. Like, I understood everything you explained, and
Okay. There is the survey, the student survey of instruction. I would like for you to fill out. Just go to Blackboard. It's under announcements. Click on the link and fill it out. I need you to do that and all the other students to do that. I do want this class, I do want you to learn. Whether you like me or not, it's beside the point. But I do want you to learn. And I do want to get better at teaching. It's fun. I enjoy it. And, you know, I try to make it practical and bring in real life situations. And hopefully I've done that. And I don't want to make the class impossible or trick you and make you fail. Like I said, I want everybody to succeed. If you fail, you just failed yourself because you didn't do the work or didn't study. So, uh, but I do want you to be successful, and I hope you enjoyed this class. I've enjoyed having you.
yeah, I've enjoyed the class, even though I've been in here by myself.
Yeah, faithful Jasmine had to listen to me 4 days a week for an hour and 15 minutes, and half of it she was by herself in this class. I appreciate your dedication and your hard work.
Thank you.
I appreciate your good humor and allowing me to pick on you.
Yeah, I'm used to it now.
Yeah, it's nothing personal. So, um, and you're the only one here I can talk to. I have to get you engaged. I had to get you engaged. You got Keith in HR that helps out a lot, and Aaron. Aaron doesn't say a whole lot. He's hard to get engaged sometimes. But when he does, he provides a lot of different insight. All right, I'll let you go.
All right, see you tomorrow.
Good luck on the exam. If you have any problems or any questions while you're studying, please don't be afraid to call me. And Monday, the class period is yours to present your presentation.
Okay.
Are you excited about it?
Not really.
Not really. Did you send me the PowerPoints or just the written part?
Just the written part.
All right. Yeah. Can you send me the PowerPoints as well, please?
Okay.
All right. So get excited about your presentation.
I'll try.
All right. Good deal. Talk to you later.